Hello, hello, hello.
Oh,
Hold on.
Let me switch microphones here. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Speakeasy Show. It's Saturday night. We have three. Oh, we lost somebody here, or somebody joined, and I don't. Who's on the Samsung?
That's me, Kimmy.
Oh, okay. I wonder what happened.
Here, so tell me real quick what you want me to do. My audio on my laptop is not coming through. I couldn't find my password. Long story. I had to sign in to a fake account on my phone. So do you want me to hang up this and you can use the Samsung box?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Will that fix your boxes?
Yeah. Welcome back to the Speakeasy Show, everybody. And the vacuum cleaner's broken. Let's go to.
Just for that, I'm leaving.
In the top right, we got Rusty Iceman. Say hello, Russ.
Howdy. How's it going?
In the bottom left, we have Grandma. Say hello, Grandma.
Hello, ladies and gents. How are you this fine evening?
And in the bottom right, and hopefully we get her picture soon, is Kimmy Jong-un.
Hello, everybody. So you want me to do my picture? It's not going to mess up the boxes?
No, that won't.
Oh, I thought it did. Okay.
Ah, there we are. And Kimmy Jong-un. We didn't give her a chance to say hello. Say hello, Kimmy.
Hey. Hey, everybody. Technical difficulty.
And my partner and co-host, Doc Martin, from the MAGA Promises Cup. Can't say MAGA. Otherwise, we get banned.
Your partner in crime.
Partner in
Y'all
crime.
be sure and save all your bail money, because you never know when we might need it.
Yeah, we might have needed it tonight fighting a troll, but that's okay. So, we're going to get back into this Ukraine story here, folks. We'll do the second half. There's like an hour left. And we should start rolling that. What do you think? So we can get that over with and then start getting down to the dirty down fun.
Yeah, because even since he's taped this, there's been so many developments.
Yes.
So we do need to leave some good discussion time at the end just to kind of catch everybody up, make sure, because Ukraine, guys, is key, because this is what they're going to use to get the message out to the normies, to help them understand the depth and breadth of the corruption, because it didn't just happen in Ukraine, guys. This is going on in every country that Biden was the point man for Obama's administration. And it's indicative of just what POTUS said on that we aired on MAGA Promises Kept. This goes all the way to the top to Barack Obama. And this is where they're going to start red pilling normal, everyday Americans to the fact that it went all the way to the top, and so may the consequences. They need to get ready.
Before we get started with the video again, I just want to say hello to, I think, the people that are in the chat real quick. Froze Happy, I see Ben K. Veritas. Hey, Ben. History will judge. That can't be the same troll, is it? Iceman is in there. Cindy, he's on the show, too. How are you in two places at once there, Rusty?
That's my twin.
Cindy MC, our one and only Patreon. We love you. We're splitting up that $1 a month between the 6 of us.
You're in for such a time, Mr. Bless your heart. Hi, Miss Katrina. So glad you came, Monica. We have
RM
so many
Johns.
people, patriots that we love.
RM Johns 35. Christy. One of my favorite trolls. That way we don't ruffle any feathers there. Horsewester. Northwester?
You can have more than one favorite.
Oh, I can? I said
Absolutely.
One of my favorite.
That's right. That's right.
Let's get rolling. Here we go. Oh. Hold on, I gotta find the video button here. My bad. Ah, there it is. Here we go. Whoa.
Potty break, everybody. We're now to the point to where I can talk to you about conspiracy fact and what Ukraine and this impeachment is really all about. Tonight, in the next few minutes, I will prove that the U.S. State Department is in collusion with the intel community and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, with NGOs, and they are working to foment revolution all around the world. I will also prove to you the name of this is not Hydra. The name of it is Civil Society 2.0. I'll show you its birth. The main non-governmental partner is George Soros. The documents that you will have in your hands in the next few minutes will prove these things without a shadow of a doubt. The whistleblower and other witnesses that Democrats refuse to call are involved in Civil Society 2.0, and they are being protected by the Democrats in Congress. And the goal of civil society is to create a shadow justice system, rewrite constitutions, and pick elected leaders. They're doing all of this stuff without the people's knowledge, without your knowledge, which I contend is the biggest crime, the biggest high crime and misdemeanor. And the conspiracy to not only commit this crime of changing constitutions and fomenting revolution, but also to keep that secret is why a hearing must go to the Senate, where they can call all of these witnesses. Tonight, as we're going through this, every piece of evidence that we have, all of the documents, all of the emails, all of the videos, all of it, will be released during this program on social media in real time during this broadcast. So as I pick up a document, you will have it as well. All of this is being done in your name, in secret, without your consent, and with your hard-earned money. The goal, as stated, is to create, in the name of democracy, a shadow justice system that will prosecute who they want to be prosecuted and who will clear the way of any co-conspirators. They also want to rewrite the Constitution and to pick the elected leaders in these countries. So let's begin here. Two items that keep popping up in our research. And they keep popping up with the left and Ukraine, and they're used interchangeably. You'll see them in the government documents that we will release here in the next few minutes. The aid packages, and even by the activists that are rioting in the streets all around the world. And they are these terms: civil society and open society. These two phrases are used by this global shadow government to mold the rest of the world into a socialist theme park. And again, being done in your name without your consent or vote. That's a pretty wild charge. Well, let's show you how they do it. They use civil and open society groups to...
Just real quick, guys, if you want me to pause it, just yell out, I'll pause it. But I do want to bring up a point. Last week, I mentioned this, that we got to be careful of all of these uprisings around the world, because I had a feeling, and I hadn't watched the entire video. I only watched the first part last week, and I was too busy to watch the second part. I had a feeling this is where this was leading, that George Soros is probably behind a lot of the civil unrest that you're seeing going on right now. But we'll see.
Well, wouldn't that make sense if he was behind the Arab Spring a few years back?
Could be. I think they're also involved in creating some wars, too. That's why we had to stay in Syria. And that's why Trump pulled us out. But
I believe he was behind the Arab Spring. And the also the Ukraine, I know he was behind that. That was called the Orange Revolution. And someone in the chat, Northeaster, I think, um, pointed out that this was a color revolution for us, and ours is purple. So I don't know who all has dug into the color revolutions, but it's something to look into.
Yes, definitely.
Instigate violent regime change. No, I'm sorry, that's not right. Not violent regime change. What is it that they, because I remember hearing this during the Arab Spring when everybody was out on the streets, and they don't use violent regime change because that's too scary. They call it, oh, yeah, remember, spontaneous indigenous popular uprisings. Now, when we were looking into Ukraine, we were primarily focusing on the timeline after 2014. We knew the coup had brought forward some new possibilities for the Obama administration. And, they were primarily what we were focused on. The Bidens got richer. The DNC and the White House for Obama used this new relationship to try to influence the 2016 election. I've laid all of this out in our previous specials with all of the facts and even incriminating audio tape that still today no one in the media seems interested in. There is little to no doubt in my mind that this was indeed what was going on, but still something was bothering me, something was missing. If you watch that first special, I barely even mentioned George Soros and his funding of an NGO in Ukraine because I didn't know enough about it. So I kind of downplayed it because I know how toxic it is to mention George Soros. I know what will be done again to my reputation and what will be said about this program because I dare bring up the name George Soros. But he was funding an NGO, a non-government organization in Ukraine, alongside the Obama administration. Now, according to two former prosecutor generals in Ukraine, that non-governmental organization, the Anti-Corruption Action Center, was being shielded by the U.S. ambassador and by the U.S. State Department. Well, things started to come together and become a little more clear in an interview I did with a former Ukrainian official who was working inside that prosecutor general's office. And he was actually there when people started organizing and protesting in the streets to get his boss fired. I want you to watch this interview. I want to make sure I understand this, because this is something that the American media will never cover, and that is, you say that it was from day one the George Soros organization that wanted him out. Why would they want him out? Why would they want him out?
That was the question we were asking them. We came out to the protesters. I was the one who actually coordinated communication with the protesters on his behalf, on the prosecutor general's behalf, asking, look, guys, what happened? What is the story behind your protest? We're ready to cooperate. Let's go in. We'll show you what's needed. Let's get involved together. You are the NGOs, your non-government organizations. Let's cooperate together and fight corruption. We invited them to the prosecutor's office, and they still, after that, even got worse and protesting all over Facebook, all over physical protests every day by the prosecutor's office, and nobody knew at the time what they were doing, what was their agenda.
If you happen to watch that Saturday podcast of mine, you might remember my reaction. So wait a minute. You didn't know what they were doing? Because that's what he said in the last part. The prosecutor general's office had no clue what the agenda was from this Soros-funded NGO. All they knew was that there was this massive coordination of people on the streets and social media. He specifically cites Facebook, and that they were protesting in the streets. All of this despite the Ukrainian government reaching out to this Soros organization, offering coordination and help, and never a specific charge or accusation as to what they were so mad about. This part of the story sent our research into an entirely new and different direction. And this
I have a
direction
question,
is dark
Bill.
and deep.
Are we still funding? Is the government still funding Facebook, Twitter? Do we still subsidize them in any way? Does anybody know?
It's a good
I didn't know we did.
I don't know. We'd have to
Well,
look.
I mean, the government, the CIA started
Originally, it was
Facebook.
a program. But
Okay.
I don't know if that's ever been publicly acknowledged either. That would be worthy of some research. If anybody out in the audience has the time to take that up, I'd be real interested to know if they're still getting public funds.
Because, I
But-
mean, how many of these NGOs do we subsidize?
Probably more than we know.
I did see something out there that Trump was cutting off, because these NGOs are taking money and just dumping them into liberal organizations. And Trump, I believe, had cut off all that money that they were using to spread out to all these Soros-funded organizations.
That was if you're talking about the there was a department, we covered that on Mega Promises Kit, and that was the love child of Elizabeth Warren. She was heading that and was making sure that all those monies was getting funded, turned back out to just their approved NGOs.
Yes.
And he cut her funds out, and Mulvaney and them were trying to get that thing shut down, and was dismantling it. But I don't know what the latest status on that. That's been a good while back that we covered that.
The other thing Glenn just said here was that these protesters don't even know what they're protesting. Does that sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
How many
If
videos have
the
we
government was
seen?
subsidizing Facebook and Twitter, remember he had Zuckerberg and Jack at the White House for a meeting, so he would know.
Oh, he knows it all, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Has a bid on
So
that.
Northwester is saying that Tesla is subsidized and Google's DARPA. So if they're still getting our money, that's just
I could
we
tell
need
you
to,
this.
we need to audit. Like I said last week, we need to audit.
Grandma, I want to say this. After the FISA report comes out, I think you're going to see a lot of these organizations get cut off.
I agree.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be a lot of disinfectant brought to this.
Oh, I hope it's bleach.
Yeah.
Kimmy is still out there. Any thoughts?
Gasoline. Kimmy, are you there? Oh, she's talking. You muted yourself. There you
Hi.
go. Hi.
I'm glad you could join us.
I'm having probs, but that's okay. I think I just finally got them fixed.
Okay. That's okay.
I do have thoughts, but I'm not going to share them because there's no way I could put them together in a coherent sentence right now, just because of all the craziness that's happening, just for me to be able to do this little piece right here. But if I think of something, I will jump in.
Okay.
Take a Xanax with a swig of your cocktail, and you'll be just fine.
I do have some Ativan that I might grab. It's never far away.
Okay, we're going to roll tape.
The Obama administration had been working in tandem with George Soros, supporting his NGOs, going all the way back to the months leading up to the Ukrainian coup in 2014. In 2013, just before the coup, Soros International Renaissance Foundation was their primary financier. But the U.S. Embassy was also strangely giving them tons of money. From 2014 through 2017, basically until Trump became president, the two main sources of funding came from George Soros and the Obama administration, your tax dollars through USAID. Now look at 2018. The Trump administration halted the money from USAID.
Boom.
But look who stepped in to fill the spot and the extra weight. Soros. He doubled down, and the U.S. Embassy resumed their funding role just as they did back before the 2014 coup. So why is the embassy, and by extension the State Department, working directly and funding George Soros? What do you and I have to gain?
Excuse me,
from
Phil.
this?
Yep.
Well,
I'm wondering if Trump can get our allies to freeze all of George Soros's assets.
I don't. A few countries have done it already, or have criminal charges against him. But
have they?
The majority, the bulk of his money's moved. Last year, I think it was a year before, into one of his charities, or his. Remember he had him. I think it was transferred to. Oh, guys, there is a word for it. Come on, help me out, chat. I know somebody else has read this, but he moved the majority of his monies into a particular fund, and I think it was to try to prevent the government from trying to get it. I think he knows that they're watching him and investigating him.
Well, his son's also in the same boat. He's doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had heard there's
no place to take the funds from human sex trafficking and smugglers, and also corruption, convicted corruption. If you remember that EO he signed back in, I think it was December of like 2017 or 2018.
2017.
It covered human trafficking and smuggling, and it also covered corruption. And I think that is all tied to this Ukraine monies. I think he knew it. He's planned for it, and that would pay a lot of our debt off. That'd be good.
I believe there was at least 4 countries that have a hit list for Soros. There, Hungary, his home country. He can't step foot in that country right now.
Well, the U.S. ought to be one of them.
Well, we'll see what happens when all this FISA stuff breaks, because he's definitely involved in a lot of it.
Let me ask you this. Have you noticed where all of the people that have been called to testify against Donald Trump in the impeachment inquiry have come from? All of them are career diplomats. They were all privy to what went down the months leading up to the Ukrainian coup and everything that went down from then up until Donald Trump. And this includes, if the rumors are correct, the whistleblower, whom every single person in Washington believes is Eric Ciaramella. Ciaramella is a CIA analyst, and this is why he is so important to this storyline. He was on the National Security Council during the Trump administration as a Ukrainian expert. He was later kicked out of the White House for leaking information and pushing Russian collusion hoaxes. He also worked directly with the DNC operative, Alexandra Chalupa, who was tasked with working alongside the Ukrainian embassy here in the U.S. to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. And if this isn't enough to discredit him as a witness, he also worked alongside Joe Biden when he was made the point man in Ukraine. But wait, there's more. It became all too painfully obvious why Adam Schiff, 5 days after our first special, said, oh, you know what? We don't need to talk about this guy. In fact, everybody keep his name quiet. Before, everybody needed to know this whistleblower.
Real quick, I want to get your prediction on impeachment here, and then I'll tell you what I think. So go ahead, Doc. Yes or no? Are they going to impeach Trump in the House?
I'm really seeing it's 50-50 right now.
Okay. Kimmy?
I think that it might be a convenient backslide to allow the Dems that are at risk. So I'm really of two minds. I could see them doing it either way. Neither way would surprise me. Let me just put it that way.
Kimmy, you're up.
Okay, so I am also of two minds, which is not unusual for me because I'm always able to see too many sides to things. But I have no idea where I'm supposed to be looking. I'm not happy about my situation right now. I look like I'm looking up to the northwest.
It's
Anyway,
okay. We got Glenn on the screen, and he's got his eyes closed.
Glenn who? Oh,
Glenn
Glenn
Beck.
Beck. Oh, so nobody cared. I could pick my nose and only 4 of y'all would know it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not going to do that though. So
If you pass gas like Falwell, everybody's going to hear it, honey. Just saying.
that was so funny. That was crazy funny. Okay,
That
so
is national embarrassment. That is karma sharpening her nails.
sharpening her nails, like the way you put that. Well, you know what? The funny thing, I'm gonna say this really fast, and then get back to the impeachment thing. That was not me. That was not me.
Oh no!
But the funny thing is honestly, like, I can understand him not admitting it. Of all the lies that they tell in DC, like that's the one that I can totally understand. Like, who wants to say, yeah, that was totally my butt?
I'm sorry, that was humiliation on a grand scale. That man will forever be known for having flatulence on national TV.
So
I
Kimmy,
know, it's amazing.
you're
Okay, so back to the
50-50?
Yeah, well, I'm more like 60-40. I was thinking that they would impeach him, but as things move along, I'm 60-40 the other way, where I think that I'm less on the side of thinking they're going to actually successfully impeach him. I thought that they would successfully impeach him and the Senate would stop it. Um, not stop the impeachment, but stop, the removal from office. But the more I see get exposed, and the more I see the president fight it, and just again expose just the truth coming out, and people are so tired of this. Um, I think they're going to learn that they can't impeach him and stay in office. They may not be able to stay in office anyway, but I'm starting to think that they can't impeach him and be able to keep their positions in um, in Congress. So I don't know. I'm leaning more toward that they're not actually going to do it. I think that Adam Schiff it's time for him to go under the bus, and I think somebody's going to toss him under there. So
I just really hope that they have a lubricant shortage when he goes to get there, because I'm afraid otherwise he would just think he's gone.
Rusty.
Is my fear. Don't let him think he's gone to hog heaven and just going to go to Orgy Island or something, because we know he likes the people.
that's a very good point.
Usually underage is the only thing the same.
Rusty, you're up to bat.
Ladies first, Grandma can go.
Oh my goodness! Did you hear that duck? Did you hear that duck?
Was that I figured that was your coffee cup.
Oh no, you're trying.
I really don't. So. I think that
I saw that all the way here in Mississippi.
I just don't think that they can. I mean, they're screwed. They're just screwed, because if they do impeach, then they're all going to get exposed, and
Right.
the people that are in those questionable areas that are, that Trump won, they're just screwed. They're just so screwed. I hope they do, because then we can, investigate them all. But I don't think they will, just to protect themselves. Doesn't matter. They're just screwed.
That's the same thing the president said. I hope they do impeach me, because then we'll get a chance to force them to testify.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that was part of the plan, I think, all along.
All right, yeah, Rusty.
Well,
I think they are going to pass this, because I think they're at a point of no return, and they're going to more radical ones like Omar and ONC they're all going to push everybody over that edge. So they're going to pass it, but it's going to die in the Senate.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I'm going to go out on a limb and tell everybody that 100% no, they will not do it. Number one, Trump wants them to do it. When did they ever do something Trump wants them to do? Number one. Number two, if this gets to the Senate, all of these witnesses are thrown out. The Chief Justice is not going to allow feelings, hearsay, or speculation in a hearing, in a trial, period. So that's all going to be bye-bye. The whistleblower will have to testify. They're not going to let that happen. Adam Schiff will have to testify. They're not going to let that happen. So,
Hunter Biden would have to
Yes.
testify.
and maybe even Joe Biden would have to come up. They can bring in Ukrainians as witnesses as well, which were blocked by Adam Schiff. He would never allow that to happen. So, and all this hearsay, all this the trial that we saw for the last 2 weeks is garbage in a actual Senate trial. Feelings do not matter. Yovanovitch wouldn't even be a witness. That would be thrown out instantly because she got fired. So what? It has nothing to do with
It's
the
very
issue at
common.
hand.
And anybody would fire an employee that was going around telling foreign countries to not not to worry about anything POTUS said to do.
Now
And
the Republicans
she
would be
openly
wise to
showed
call
his
her up.
name.
Well,
Wouldn't even put his picture up.
the Republicans would be wise to call her up because they could use her as a witness against the impeachment, to be honest with you. So,
But has that ever stopped them? Not really.
well, in
They
a
knew this
Senate,
was a.
but Rusty, in a Senate trial, the Chief
Mhm.
Justice is on,
Yeah.
is controlling the whole thing.
I totally agree with you.
All
But
this
I
shit
don't think
show-
it would stop them.
all this
Yeah.
shift show, it won't. The second they start doing that garbage
Mm-hmm.
they did for the last 2 weeks, it's stricken. It's cut off right off at the bat, and he could throw these witnesses right out. So
Oh yeah,
it's not.
But
It's not what Schiff did this
Saying
week.
that I think that they brought this knowing that there was a dead end to begin with. Is that right?
Exactly.
Rusty?
It's just putting
Yeah.
doubt, trying to put doubt in voters' heads about Trump being
Dirty up the
corrupt.
president as much as
Well-
they can on their way to Gitmo.
Well, this is true, but I think they don't stop and think about it. If they had thought about this in the first place, they would have stopped it by now.
No,
I just think they're going to go over the edge.
I think you're giving them
Farther.
too little credit. I think they are very smart. They are trying to put doubt in the voters' heads, and if they never vote on an impeachment, there's still that doubt in there that Trump did something wrong.
Well, I hate to give Democrats credit for anything.
Well, I don't think Nancy Pelosi's stupid. I think she's not going to let this get to the Senate.
I think personally that she didn't know that. I mean, this is what I've heard, that Schiff told her that he had evidence, and then she was convinced that he had evidence, and then it's just more of this just smear. It's like the Kavanaugh hearing all over again.
Do you really buy that? Do you really think Nancy didn't know that Schiff didn't really have shit? Excuse me.
Well,
I think she was willing to let him make a fool out of himself just to see if he could work a miracle and bring about enough disgrace on POTUS just by dirtying him up, knowing that they all know that they don't really have anything on POTUS. We know that their underlying mission is just to make it as dirty and as disgusting to the voting public, just to tire them out. What they didn't count on is it's not tiring the public of POTUS, it's tiring the public of them. And that's
well, when you have the same playbook over and over and over again, when you've got the independents now saying, 49% of them saying they're sick of this.
exactly.
I mean, you would think they'd catch on. So, I mean,
but remember,
Phil, I think
they believed their own lies in 2016 enough that I think they really were shocked when they lost, even though they really knew the true polls. They knew that the propaganda they were putting out was wrong. The problem with the Dems is they start believing their own freaking fake narrative.
No, this is a
That's why.
this is a 4-point shot with you're down by 4 points and you're trying to throw a 4-point shot up. They know they've got garbage up there running against Trump. They know they do. They know none of them can beat him. This is desperation.
This is the Hail Mary.
Yes, absolutely. They know they've got nothing. That's why.
And the president tweeted.
And they ran this. Here's another thought to put in your head. They ran this so they did not have to pass the USMCA.
Isn't that sad?
If they
the president tweeted 95% approval rating.
If they pass the USMCA, the economy might get even better. Can't have that happen next year.
It will. Did he say 95% in Republicans?
Yes. Yeah, the president said 95% approval rating in the Republican Party, a record.
If they pass the USMCA this year, the economy would have grown next year. Can't have that happen. And they've got junk up on the debate stage.
Making enough people mad that she's not even going to try. That she came out this week trying to start softening the blow. I don't think we'll be able to fit it on our calendar, but they sure fitted impeachment in. But they sure didn't do anything for the American people. They aren't doing squat, and she's trying to soften it now. They're just trying to do anything they can to keep him from getting a win, and in the process of biting their own nose off to spite their face.
Well,
how sad is that?
How
sad is it?
Yeah.
They don't care about the American people. They care about their own skin, and oh my God, what's about to happen is just going to be glorious.
That's all I can say. I think they knew this impeachment was a scam to begin with. They knew it wouldn't get to the Senate. It dragged out the House long enough to stop any debate on USMCA. Yep. They don't have nearly enough time to go through the USMCA and pass it this year. That's all it was. Because if he gets that USMCA passed, the economy goes even better, unemployment goes lower, household incomes increase, they're toast. They know they're in trouble now with what they got up on the debate stage. They've got garbage. So if you help the economy even more, they're done. That's why they're allowing Deval Patrick and Michael Bloomberg and all these other people to start joining the race now, this late into the game, because they know they are in trouble. Their internal polling is telling them they're cooked. So this is the Hail Mary, like Grandma said. That's what I think.
Well, I don't know why they didn't call me up to testify, because I read the transcript. And I know Doc. She watched. What was it that you tweeted out? You said something about. Oh, I think you're muted, honey.
He had the nerve to not even get to see. It was something about I didn't know if I was going to get to be on the show this week because, what was it? I'm going to find it because I might be called to testify since I didn't know anything, but I'd heard a lot.
Oh, that's what it was.
I'll find it. You just go right ahead. I'll find that.
All right. Well, we're going to roll tape again here.
Let me ask you why all the State Department officials, the CIA, NSC staffers, so scared of Donald Trump poking around in Ukraine. What are they afraid of revealing? I wonder, does it have anything to do with the financing of some of these groups, like the Soros-funded NGO? I pointed out in my mega chalkboard that the Ukrainian prosecutors claimed to have evidence that over $7 billion had been misappropriated. Is it this part? Is this part of it? Because if this is part of that missing $7 billion, that would kind of be important here, wouldn't it? It would also be relevant if the people currently involved in the impeachment were dealing with these funds that were given to groups like the Soros NGO through our State Department, through the embassy. That would be kind of important. Well, that's an answer I can't officially find, but that is an answer that Donald Trump was asking on that phone call July 25th, and it must be answered in the Senate trial. But I want to show you what we did find. This is an email chain, and it's going to be sent in social media right now. This email chain was released via a Freedom of Information Act request. The first email, starting down here, is from the alleged whistleblower, sent to all the heavyweights within the State Department that were working on Ukraine. The entire email has been redacted. All of it is gone. Whatever Caramella specifically said, the State Department will not release that. They do not want you to know. But the final email in the chain reveals the overall context. Obama administration dollars going through the U.S. Embassy via USAID. See, that's what the one guy, Christopher Anderson, said. Embassy Kyiv, coordinated with our U.S. aid mission folks, will have detailed input tomorrow. Why do I know the name Christopher Anderson? I know who Christopher Anderson was. That name sounds familiar because he was the guy testifying against Donald Trump at the impeachment inquiry 2 weeks ago. They're all connected, and the coup is on. But still, it begs the question, what really is going on? It can't be just about Ukraine, can it? And why? Being that U.S. funding to Soros-backed groups began in 2013, we started looking beyond our initial timeline. We noticed one name pop up again and again and again and again, and that's what cracked this for us. His name is Alec Ross. Ross was appointed to the State Department as a senior advisor on innovation to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. He first started popping up on our radar screen in Ukraine in late 2011. I'm going to show you some things. This is Ross at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine on a fact-finding mission where he was, quote, learning about the local status of internet freedom and discussing Secretary Clinton's 21st century statecraft agenda. Oh, I'm going to go into Clinton's 21st century agenda more in just a bit. But basically, it boils down to an observation that the Obama administration had regarding the state of the world as it was beginning to undergo these massive, massive changes, technological changes in infrastructure, mass media and communications. These changes were all occurring at the same time. This could provide advantages to somebody if they were willing to take advantage. Well, you know what? I'm going to show you some videotape. Let me have Ross describe it. This is Alec Ross addressing the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, October 2011. Watch.
And the force and effect of all three of these paradigm shifts taking place at one creates a moment of remarkably disruptive change. And for those of us that work in foreign policy, the change that I would argue is actually most significant goes to this issue: power.
Wow. Disruptive change. Some might describe this as chaos. But ultimately, for those willing to exploit it, the reward is power. Now, for most of us, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, I thought we all pretty much agree that regime change and stoking chaos is not really what the American people are into. But this is exactly what was going on under the Obama administration, and it is going on tonight. And it's all being done in your name. You cannot be held guiltless after tonight, because now you know. Hillary's State Department was bastardizing a plan that actually began a few weeks after Obama was elected in November 2008. It was an initiative that actually came from the Bush White House called Public Diplomacy 2.0. Its stated goal was to enable people in other countries to combat violent or extreme ideology, more specifically, Islamic radicalism from Al-Qaeda. So the State Department invited a bunch of tech-savvy people from all over the world to show them how to network and how to launch social media campaigns to counter radical ideology. But just a few months later, elections have consequences. Obama was elected. And the new administration under Hillary Clinton changed public diplomacy 2.0 to civil society 2.0. Remember, that's the leftist catchphrase I told you about? Civil society is often used interchangeably with open society. That's the George Soros thing. The spin is that we're just making these groups that want to rise up and make their countries more free, more open, and more democratic. But what it really means is we just want to turn this country towards leftist politics. And what's entirely ironic that everybody seems to miss is the only way they can make these countries more free and open is by creating systems that give the people in the State Department and George Soros more control, and they do all of it in the cover of secrecy. Again, here's Alec Ross on what Civil Society 2.0 was doing and how they were actively training groups to mobilize through social media. Watch.
A second one is a program that Secretary Clinton launched in Marrakesh, Morocco in November of 2009 called Civil Society 2.0. And what we've done with Secretary Clinton's Civil Society 2.0 program is we've taken one of America's undeniable strengths, the strength of our technology and of our innovators, and we've put them to work in service of our diplomatic goals. So what we've done is we've created these things called tech camps, where over a couple days there's very intensive training of grassroots civil society organizations by American technology experts.
I wonder if any of those groups are conservatives. So let's call a spade here. Civil Society 2.0 was training ground for the foot soldiers of what began to be known as indigenous, which they're not indigenous, they're being trained by us, spontaneous, not spontaneous, we let them loose and tell them here's when you go, and uprisings. Yeah, they are uprisings. And if you're curious as to what civil society or open society groups should be advocating, I can guarantee you it's not the U.S. Constitution. Well, let me have Hillary Clinton herself tell you. Here she is speaking this year on civil society organizations.
Like putting a price on carbon pollution and using the money to fund clean energy and to send dividends back to working families. That would lower emissions and raise incomes at the same time. Not to mention weaken petro-dictators like Putin. Or taxing net worth instead of annual income, which would reduce inequality and provide the resources needed to make major new investments in infrastructure, education, and health. We should explore how to make a universal basic income work in a way that preserves dignity and a sense of purpose. And we need to reform corporate governance and break up monopolies and oligopolies.
Okay. Is that Bernie Sanders? Or
I gotta.
Warren?
I
No,
just
that was Hillary
jump in
Clinton,
here,
right? I thought
I
she
can.
was the mom.
So we're going to end global warming by throwing money at it. Is that? I mean, we're going to pay. Did you guys see Dr. what's his name? Oh gosh, he went to Harvard he went to MIT. He's from India. Do you know who I'm talking about? Anyway, he basically outlined the whole global warming thing, and basically what they're saying is that we pay this group of people, which surprisingly includes Hillary Clinton and Al Gore and all those people. We pay them, and they give us credits. It's like the Elton John thing. You know, he paid credits, or he paid some sort of tax or payment so that he could fly his jet around the world, and that supposedly is supposed to make everything all better if you pay money.
Yeah, like a carbon tax, like as long as you pay for it, right? Sure. Yeah.
And that's going to end global warming if you pay a carbon tax. Apparently,
right.
It just makes absolutely no sense to me.
It does.
Well, it's just
no, it makes
stupid.
absolute sense.
What's his name?
Shiva, that's it. Dr.
Yeah.
Shiva. Thank you, Nancy.
It makes absolute sense.
Son, he and his wife got skewered recently for taking private flights all across the globe while they were out in Africa touting, global warming and all that stuff. And so as penance for their sin of taking these private flights, they contributed large amounts of money to, supposedly these companies that are supposed to be offsetting their carbon footprint. I don't know why they didn't just go plant some trees. Would have been a lot more effective.
You're missing the whole thing, guys. Global warming and climate change isn't about the climate. It's not about global warming. It's not about anything. It's about gaining power over all of us.
And money.
That's exactly
That's
right.
And
what it
money.
is.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
It has nothing. They don't care. They don't give a rat's ass about the environment. None of them. It's a
Redistributing
power
wealth
grab.
too.
Well, because they know that they know the environment's fine.
Mhm.
If I mean, maybe if something was wrong with it, they would care, but it's not. And
Well, it's like
what?
Dan Bongino said the other day. Go ahead, Kimmy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, it was just barely a formed thought, so I don't even know if it's going to make sense or not. But way back in the day, all they wanted us to do was like plant a tree and watch it grow and something. I can't remember the lyrics. We were supposed to be planting trees, and when you plant trees, the trees give off oxygen. The people we breathe the oxygen, and we put out carbon dioxide, and the plants take that in, and it's just a nice little symbiotic relationship of just fabulousness, right? But now they don't even talk about planting trees anymore. And I'm not saying that we need to become tree huggers, that we need to run around planting trees, but I am saying that now all they're doing is bitching about the carbon monoxide, but they're not saying, they're not using what was an obvious solution. If there really is a problem with too much carbon dioxide, then you plant a freaking tree.
If you want to understand what they're driving at, look at the new Green Deal. It is a total
Right.
control by the
It
government
is.
of every aspect of your life. What does
That's
that have to
exactly
do
what it
with
is.
saving the climate? Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
But there was a very interesting article written out by a scientist, and he said that actually, if they took some of that money, if they were really convinced that it was due to, that it was harming the environment, they could go plant. And he did the research. He told you exact number of trees to offset their little thing, if that would make them feel happier, because it actually, not to be a tree hugger as per your term, but it actually assists not only in the cycle that God planned, but he went into all the other benefits that increased, the benefits to Mother Earth. And it would only take a very small amount of trees to do it. So we know their intentions. It's never about what they're talking about. That's always a cover. It's a scam, or it is a ruse for their money laundering, power grabbing schemes. That's all it ever is.
Yeah, and it is about power. And I don't know if this is where Phil was going with the Green New Deal, with what he was going to, if this is the point he was going to make. But when you said it, Phil, it made me think of the Agenda 21, which I think is now Agenda 2030 or something.
Yep.
That if we can't travel because of emissions, and if we can't, do all these things, we can't live on farms. Like, there's no reason to have a farm if you can't deal with beef because they're farting. I mean, then that probably is part of keeping us all in the same little cities, the same little box houses high-rise apartment buildings and stuff that they want us to be in. And could you imagine? I mean, that I don't want to get to the place of super conspiracy here, but I mean, Agenda 2030 is a real thing, and if they wanted to kill us and they just stick us all in different apartment buildings, how easy would it be to take out 1,000 people just with one shot, or one?
It's like the Jewish ghettos.
Yeah, or the Black American ghettos, or that's what they do, is they put people in cages.
Easier to control too because we start naturally reverting to groupthink. And so not only we're not as healthy, they can kill us off easier, we're easier to control. There's just numerous benefits to them. And another thing that shows you that the antithesis is where we need to be headed is just by our Secretary of Agriculture, what's his name? Oh, Sonny Perdue, that is trying to move the offices back out near the constituents that they serve. It brings jobs back to the local economy. It takes the groupthink out of Washington, and it minimizes costs. And of course, the libtards in Washington are fighting him tooth and toenail. And they need to do that with more and more of the departments, I think, is put it back out, decentralize Washington, put these offices back out more in the communities that they serve. And it takes the power away because look at Washington. It's a little bitty liberal think tank is all it is. It's groupthink at its most intense.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know why they have an Agenda 2030 since we're going to all die in 8 years anyway, according to Bernie. And if you
Right.
think about it, Bernie, you know, if we've got 8 years, right? Then why? I heard this on Bongino's podcast the other day. Then why did the Obamas get this $15 million home on Martha's Vineyard that's right next to the water? Why are property values increased on money or on property that's right next to water? I mean, this is just if people had half a brain, they could figure out this is just utter BS.
But they look
Well,
back over the last 20 or 30 years and see how many times we've been told this BS already, that we're going to die in so many years. It never has happened.
Right.
and you know, Miss Katrina in the chat a while back, she said they have enough money. It's now about power. I agree with that. I know that money is the love of money is the root of all evil, and I have a hard time having that verse exist and me saying that what they're really after is power. But they can print all the money they want to print. They can do whatever they want to do in order to get money. But they really are after not, and I'm even going to say like not just the power, but even further with what Phil's saying, it's the control. They want the money so they can have the power so that they can control us. All they want is to control us because we are cattle to them. Cattle that farts. And they don't like us very much.
If you look at Dr. Shiva, he did it probably about a month ago. If you look at, or maybe a little bit more, watch Dr. Shiva's Periscope thing. He explains it all. And I mean, it's like, he makes it make a lot of sense. And I think actually at one point I put it in way a long time ago. I put it in to our chat room. It's really interesting and it makes so much sense.
But you look back, and we were supposed to be underwater by 2017. New York was supposed to be totally underwater. Al Gore. Then we had the Paris climate change. That was nothing but redistribution of wealth, and to make us even weaker in the world. Also, along with all of you, and those points.
All right, let's get back to it and roll the tape again.
Moderate one. Carbon taxes, a wealth tax, basic income, universal basic income, and breaking up companies and banks. That's something that I thought only the far left of the Democratic Party wanted. The Clintons are the mascots for the establishment. So does that mean that when they say, oh, we got to find somebody mainstream, that it's just finding somebody who will say all those things when they're running, but they actually believe in all of these far left policies? Is that now part of the establishment of the Democratic Party? Yes. And I know this is what, many people have believed. They talk about moving to the center, but they're not moving to the center. They are only moving to the center when they talk to you, a voter.
Tulsi Gabbard.
This is them talking to the elites, and their masks are off. But the bigger point here is that when they use words like civil society, open society, and spreading democracy, what they really care about is all of the leftist socialist ideological items that they all have in their speeches, which I want to make very clear. If your position as a politician is socialism, and you're going campaigning on it like Bernie Sanders, and people vote for it, hey, that's cool. But if this is the policy of the State Department, unbeknownst to the people, and it is the State Department's policy, even if the people vote for somebody in the opposite direction like Donald Trump, well, that means we don't really have a republic, that the voter's voice doesn't really matter, that the president is nothing but a showpiece, and it doesn't matter who you elect. This is the policy now of the State Department, because anyone who gets in their way, including the president, they will destroy. That's why this is all a secret. Well, no, it's not actually a secret. It's all out in the open, but they have the press to cover for them. Civil Society 2.0 came to Ukraine in 2011. Alec Ross and his tech camps commenced shortly thereafter, teaching native activists and NGOs how to mobilize and carry their online presence to the streets. I want to show you a video that was taken inside of the Ukrainian parliament in November 2013. Now, this was before the Ukrainian uprising ousted the former regime. Watch carefully.
Что на территории нашего государства при поддержке и при непосредственном участии посольства Соединенных Штатов Америки осуществляется проект Техком, в рамках которого ведется подготовка к разжиганию гражданской войны на Украине.
Stop this for a second. I don't know about anybody else on the staff, but I don't speak Russian, so Did we have this translated for the people? Apparently no. Okay. Let me translate for you roughly. What he's saying there is right now, right down the street, just a few blocks away, the U.S. State Department is training people to start a revolution. That's what he's saying. Now, it's very important to point out that this particular guy was very pro-Russia. And that's why he was being shouted down, because he's very pro-Putin and Russia. But what he's saying is true. It was happening. This is Alec Ross, traveling around the world. That's what he wanted to get started. And make no mistake, they do not want a strong Ukraine able to defend itself, or the Obama administration would have sent the weapons systems that they were begging the Obama administration for to defeat Russia. They say now, oh, that's so important, but it wasn't then. What they want is a state that is beholden to the Democrats' Hydra. So as we started to analyze Ukraine, we started to break down the left's strategy in tearing down an entire country and molding it in line with their political ideology. The founders of the Fabian Society would be very, very impressed. It's a four-part strategy, and since Ukraine was so successful for them, we're going to use it as the case study. But I want you to know that I'm only using Ukraine as an example. This is happening all over the world, and I will show you how close it is to your house a little bit later. First, step one. Step one is the U.S. State Department and their proxies, like the National Endowment for Democracy and Freedom House, we just taught you about a few minutes ago. They identify, train, and fund civil society groups to mobilize. This is Civil Society 2.0 and operations like Alec Ross and his tech camps. It all began eerily enough on September 11th, 2012. And make no mistake, these programs are designed for one thing only: revolution. They operate to nurture chaos and collapse the regime. They are not even trying to hide that fact. Check out this quote from Alec Ross. Quote, "Some of the things that I spoke about when I came into the department, things like leaderless revolutions or virtual organizations, they might have been really edgy or a little off-center. But after Tunisia and Egypt, nobody is questioning the abstraction of leaderless revolutions. And after WikiLeaks, certainly everyone understands the power of virtual, globally distributed organizations." Now, if leaderless revolutions and leaderless organizations sound familiar, let me remind you, it's because that's what they say about Antifa. You can't go after Antifa. And you can't even say what Antifa is really for or against because they're a leaderless activist group. We can't shut down Occupy Wall Street because there is no leadership. No administration in their right mind that believed in the principles of this governing document called our Constitution, outside of Obama, Hillary, FDR, and Wilson, would ever condone anything like this. That's the work of a madman to destabilize the Western world. But that's why they built it to run separately within an already established organization like the State Department. Now, I'm not telling you that everyone in the State Department is bad. I am telling you there are people that will guard this with their life. These policies are being pursued right now as we speak, and they could give a flying crap who the president is. Again, the quote from Alec Ross, quote, "Instead of trying to create a new bureau, what we wanted to do was build a long-term institutional capacity. I leave feeling that the work has been fully institutionalized and the programs will live on." What was it the whistleblowers lawyer said? Don't worry, if one falls, two will rise to take its place. That's weird because that's kind of like Hydra. Don't worry, if you cut the head off of one, two heads will rise in its place. By the way, a little tip for Alec and Hillary and the State Department and George Soros from Captain America here. You're on the wrong side, guys. Maybe you should stop talking and acting like Hydra. Of course, Hydra, they were socialists because the Nazis were socialists. It's starting to become clear now, a little bit perhaps, why the U.S. ambassador in Ukraine was telling Ukrainian lawmakers to keep their hands off of Soros NGOs. One of the star witnesses for Adam Schiff in the impeachment is the former Ukrainian ambassador. It said that Trump and the new president of Ukraine spoke about this stuff in the July 25th phone call. They both said that they knew that the ambassador in Ukraine was in with dirty people with our State Department and Ukraine. Multiple sources verify that she told the prosecutor general in Ukraine to keep their hands off of the Soros NGO and various others with the State Department. Is it now a little more clear why she would have said that? Because Soros is working with the State Department. It's not criminal to them, it's the plan. It's also clear why a CIA analyst was involved in the U.S. aid money going to Ukraine. And now is a whistleblower against the president who is looking into that? Or maybe why the main witness in the impeachment are all from the State Department and diplomatic corps. And also, how the intelligence community and FBI has seemingly been operating on their own to bring down Trump. It's because, as Alec Ross said, this operation has now been, quote, institutionalized and will live on. Now, let's move to step two. The step two is when the opportunity emerges, the U.S. trained activists go into action. Now, I'll talk about the Arab Spring here in a bit, but the opportunity in the Middle East and North Africa was the Tunisian fruit vendor setting himself on fire. For Ukraine, it was when the former president decided to side with Russia over the European Union. That's when all the people that Alec Ross and the State Department had trained went into action on their cue. Because step three is the State Department and their proxies actively support the opposition. Well, this is going to make you laugh. It's so obvious. Under Obama, this was the actual administration policy. But now this happens regardless of the elected administration's policy by the institutionalized deep state. This institutionalized policy is what all the witnesses are talking about in the impeachment trial. Trump is a threat to the institutionalized policy that they have going. And they will not stop doing this policy, no matter what president says, no matter who the president is, unless this is revealed and the American people say, enough. Now, as activists and protesters and riots began to overtake the streets in Ukraine, here's Victoria Nuland. She's the Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasian Affairs. She traveled to the Ukraine 3 separate times during that uprising. In December 2013, she was even shown here handing out cookies to the revolutionary activist in the streets. See, the problem is sometimes the revolutionaries are good, sometimes the revolutionary is bad. It doesn't matter to this organization. That same month, I want to remind you, John McCain showed the Obama's regime change policy was a bipartisan effort when he went to Ukraine to meet with the Ukrainian opposition. But let's not forget, this is the same John McCain that went over to Syria to meet with the terrorists who later became ISIS, when the administration used this very system to try to overthrow Assad. You want to know why we're there? This is why. The National Endowment for Democracy reported that it spent over $3 million of your tax money in Ukraine for this. In fact, here's the document. We'll be releasing it now on the internet. The question is, this report has been scrubbed from their official website. Why? Why was it scrubbed? And when will the people learn that the internet is forever? Their funding included more than $30,000 to George Soros' Open Society Foundation. Again, it begs the question, why is the U.S. government helping George Soros? What is their ultimate goal here? The answer to those questions lie in the final stage of this plan, which is step 4. Once regime change has occurred, infiltrate the new government with hand-picked civil society leaders. Now, the Assistant Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, the one that was handing out the cookies, she was caught red-handed in a leaked phone conversation that we have, discussing how the government needed to manipulate who would become the next Ukrainian prime minister. And surprise, surprise, that man ended up getting the job. But even though they'd been publicly outed manipulating the affairs of a sovereign nation, they didn't stop. They doubled down. We already know that the State Department and the Obama administration as a whole were working to protect a George Soros-funded NGO called the Anti-Corruption Action Center. Soros and the Obama administration were specifically using them to target Ukraine's criminal justice system. Remember, the idea is to have a shadow justice system that could go after the guys who are standing in your way, good or bad, and to protect the people who are on your side. But the coordination didn't stop there. Newly released emails obtained by Freedom of Information Act request shows near weekly communication between Nuland and Soros. This is an email chain from June 1st, 2016, and it shows Soros setting up a call with Nuland for one of their scheduled updates. The next email chain, just a week later, initiated by Soros' organization, details how the State Department and Soros were actively working together on projects relating to Ukraine's criminal justice system. And I want you to look at this and see if you recognize any of the oh, there's the name of the whistleblower. Isn't that crazy? It's like this guy had his hands into everything. The State Department, the NSC, the CIA, the DNC, all these operatives, Joe Biden, and now George Soros. This is the reason why Adam Schiff and the Democrats are scared of naming the whistleblower, because his fingers are on everything here. There's no way this man can testify in an open forum. I just hope he's not feeling sad or suicidal. The president should put an order out to protect this man from those people in this deep state. They have to make sure that this man never testifies. Now,
You know, that's interesting. I wonder
we're
if this
sending
is
this
why they're
document out
working so
right-
hard to protect his name.
Yeah. Well,
Because the more known he is, the less easy it's going to be to.
Everybody knows it's him. I mean, it's, you know.
Well, they do now, but I'm talking about back when they were being so careful. I noticed that, like, even before people were getting banned and stuff and having their videos taken down for saying his name,
Yeah.
they were being super careful. And I always hear about, like, whenever someone is a whistleblower, that they never have trouble saying the person's name. As soon as they find out the person's name, they're like, "Oh, there it is. We know who the person is now. Here's his address. Here's where his mama works."
It
Let's
doesn't
get her
get
fired.
anonymity. It only promises that there will not be that they won't let them have reprisals for it. But he doesn't qualify for the whistleblower under the whistleblower guidelines. He's not even a leaker. You know, he's a gossip.
All I could think of when I heard all this stuff, just, you know, previous to our discussion right now, is they know the DOJ, obviously Giuliani, they know all this stuff. All this stuff is coming out. All this stuff is going to be made public, and the mainstream media is going to have to report on it all. They are just, what's going to happen in the next few months is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to be smiling every day until POTUS is reelected on November 3rd, and then 4 years after that. It's just amazing what's going to happen.
Okay, all of a sudden our internet went crazy. Well, hold on, maybe it came back.
Hey, I'm still seeing comments. Oh, by the way, this is the first time I've been able to see comments. That's because I'm looking on my.
It's flashing like crazy. It won't. Really,
Yeah, it's not
unstable.
playing whenever I press play.
Yeah, it's really unstable.
Yeah, I'm surprised I can see comments.
I might have to stop it and restart it because it's going crazy here. It won't stabilize for some reason. It was fine right up until just now.
For me, the comments are still scrolling through, but I can't get it to play the video. Like, there's nothing.
I can see comments.
Yeah, I can see the comments, but the video itself I can't see. Like,
all right, I'm gonna stop the stream quick and then restart it and see if we can't get it.
Well, what's really surprised me about all this is CNN is actually get the same thing as Grandma does.
Aussie Nick is saying reopen a new window for video. That means he can hear us. Well, I'm assuming that means he can hear us.
Wow, it is not working right.
Up to hear us
Hold on.